Hey everyone, welcome to the Touch My Health podcast with Matt and Katie, where we dig into mental health, physical health, and holistic wellness. We share personal stories and struggles that we have overcome. These are our own opinions and experiences. Enjoy.
Have you ever felt trapped in a relationship that you knew was hurting you, yet you couldn't walk away? That's the power of a trauma bond. Today, we're diving deep into why breaking free feels impossible and how you can finally unshackle yourself from the cycle of toxic love, either in a relationship or, in my case, childhood trauma. We're going to get into it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Touch My Health podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm Katie, and today we're going to talk about trauma bonds. Talk about what a trauma bond is, how to break trauma bonds, and how to take your power back.
Excellent. Real important about trauma bonds. I have personal experience in dealing with this in my childhood and really have done some research into breaking that trauma bond. And with that, do you want to?
Yeah, let's first talk about what is a trauma bond. And while I could paraphrase and say what it is, I figured we'd just straight from the Goog's mouth. So, a trauma bond is a strong emotional attachment that develops between a victim and their abuser, often characterized by a cycle of abuse and intermittent positive reinforcement, which makes it difficult for the victim to leave the relationship despite the harm they experience. Essentially, the victim feels bonded to the abuser even though they are being abused. And some common types of relationships that this can happen in is, like domestic violence relationships, manipulation, and, child abuse. So those are the most common types of trauma bonding relationships that experience
Yeah.
that.
And that's where I have the most experiences in my childhood abuse with that trauma bond and with my mother, my biological mother.
Why don't you kind of give a little bit of a backstory with
Okay.
how that, you know, how old you were and when it started and how that bond, that positive and negative, and that trauma bond kind of formed for you.
All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. So when I was growing up, I lived with my mother. My brother and my sister were all in the same house. Mother, single mom, working at as a waitress at one of the casinos in Las Vegas where I grew up. And as far back as I can remember, she was abusive, not only physically, but verbally, mentally, all of the abusive type of things that,
Mm-hmm.
you experience. And really with me, it came down to the fact that I just never felt good enough for her or couldn't ever do the right thing. And growing up, I was obviously in a violent childhood and in a violent home. And anytime there was any type of conflict, it was smacks to the face, it was punches
That's awful.
in the mouth. I mean, there was many times I had marks on my face or marks on my neck. I can remember many times where
And the schools never said anything?
no, no, it was any time after school. There wasn't really ever a specific time. It didn't happen just on the weekends. It really happened, I mean, Monday
Mm-hmm.
through Sunday. I mean, it never stopped. The only time really that it was good or when it did stop, I think is when she would feel bad or she would feel like um, she needed to kind of have a good day or maybe regain that power back, and she would buy us things, that positive
They have
reinforcement.
to do the positive. Yeah, that's the whole cycle is you have negative abuse and then they do the positive, you know,
Yeah, positive. The positive reinforcement came in forms of gifts, forms of travel. We would, we would go on trips. We would go see family. We would go, take little mini vacations. And every holiday was kind of always big. Like there was big gifts, there was big presents. Christmas was a big deal. Valentine's Day, we always woke up to these extravagant
from your mom, your
from my
biological
mother.
mother.
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm.
And
Which there's lots of people who go all out for Christmas and stuff like that. But um, when you're when it's used in a way to try to gain positive reinforcement to make up for all the abusive behavior is
yeah, and that's really what it felt like. There was so much abuse and so much verbal negativity, not just at me, but at my brother and sister as well. I can remember the reason that my oldest brother moved away is my mother chased him around our pool with a baseball bat, aluminum baseball bat.
just
And
because or
who knows? I don't even remember what the reason was. He did something and she went on a psychotic rant and he was crying and running around trying to get away from her. And he ended up leaving and moving with my dad. And growing up, we were always told how bad of a person my dad was and how awful that, he would treat us and all of this stuff. So it almost built up this scared feeling to go with my dad. And that's part of it too, part of that manipulation, part of that trauma, and the way that she would positive reinforcement, positively reinforce it is by gifts. We really,
so she wasn't like affectionate because it does say too that when they alter the patterns, the behaviors, that it can have periods of kindness or affection. And since it was that, it's you're talking about your biological mother and parents, we think of nurturing and, very, motherly and sweet and affectionate. So were there she was not an affectionate person with any of you or with you or
if there was, I can't remember to be honest. There's a lot that my brain has. Like I'm nervous talking about it right now.
I
Like I
know.
can feel my heart beating out of my chest. But
I don't mean to like, I'm not laughing at you. I'm
no, I
saying I
know. Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
like
I
it's,
know.
I
But
know it's tough for you.
it is, and it's good to talk about it because I feel like it can bring light to such a dark situation and possibly help someone else that has been through this before. And it really came about within the last 4 or 5 months that it's put it on my heart to talk about it because I've never really been open about talking about my childhood abuse or things like that. So a lot of my childhood, I can remember bits and pieces, but because of that trauma, because of that abuse, really, I feel like my brain has kind of shut some of that off
Hmm.
and shut down some of those memories. So I really only remember a couple few instances that were bad.
Like really bad.
Yeah, really bad. So um one of the things that I do remember is I had left my keys in my locker. I was in middle school. I'd left my keys to the house in my school locker, and I came home, and my I had gotten in the house with my sister. I mean, my sister and I went to the same school, so she had a key,
Yeah.
so we were able to get in. But she came home, and I don't know even how it was brought up, but I told her that, I'd left my keys in my school locker, and she took my bike lock that I used to lock my BMX bike up with, and it was kind of like a horseshoe, and then had like this lock, so it kind
Yeah,
of,
like your normal, like the
yep,
horseshoe with the,
yeah, the big lock on the
and it
bottom.
would flip to this side
Yeah,
and push it down.
yep, that's exactly it. And she took that lock and smashed it through my TV, through the screen of my TV, and it was, one of those old school TVs, and then smacked me in the face, and pushed me down on my bed, and got on top of me, and she took a hanger that was on my bed and shoved it in my mouth, and was almost like
Jeez.
choking me with it, right? And that was because I had left my school keys in my locker. Um, so those instances were followed up by extravagant gifts. There was never a time that I can remember an over affectionate,
She was just a gift. Like
mm-hmm,
she probably has zero emotional range and doesn't know how to, or didn't know how to, like, you know.
yeah,
But I mean, there's no excuse for that type of behavior ever, anyways, and there's not a gift you can buy that would make that
no,
acceptable.
no, not even a little bit.
No.
So that was one instance. And as I got older, like I said, it was as far back as I can remember. I mean, there was times that she smacked us in the face, and smacked me in the face, smacked my older
Hmm.
brother in the face, smacked my sister. I mean, it wasn't just towards me, it was all of us, but
You
because
feel like you got the most of it,
I
though.
did, my brother moved away when we were in middle school. I think he was in like eighth grade. And when he moved away, that was when I started getting the most of it,
Mhm.
because I would stand up for myself or stand up for my sister. And also, I was a shitty teenager, and I was,
Hmm. Well, that's one of the things, though, that I feel the psychological impact had on you from that abuse is I mean, I kind of think it does, but do you think you were more violent and more of a, as you say, what did you just call yourself? A bad kid
I was
or
a terrible
terrible
teenager. Yeah.
teenager? But
Yeah.
do you think that was a result of that? That's the
Oh,
psychological impact? You were getting in fights and you felt like you wanted to take out your aggression and violence because you were being beat at home,
yes,
you know.
100%. I was in
So,
a violent home. So I showed that violence at school with other kids, and I would fight. I mean, at least two, three times a year. I would fight with my oldest brother. I'd fight with my sister, just kind of the normal.
yeah.
And it was an everyday
Mhm.
thing. And I thought it was almost normal. I never thought about it as abnormal, because that was my normal, right? And really, when I broke away from that, it made me feel guilty. And that's where that trauma bond comes in, is she had built up this sense of how bad my dad was, and she would make me feel guilty, or make me
Hmm.
not want to go see my dad, and it was her way of manipulating and creating that she's the good parent. My dad is the bad parent. He's an awful
Yeah.
person and all of
Even
that.
though she's the abusive one.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
How much?
Well, and you already have instinctively Jeez, scared the crap out of me. Okay. Well, that's fine. We can keep going. You can edit that out, right? All right. You already had a bond because she is your mother.
Right.
You know, I mean, I feel like you're born with a bond with your parents
You are.
automatically.
You
So
are.
you already have that attachment to her because it is your mom. So,
100%. Yep.
and then her, buying the gifts or doing things to try to prove that, well, I'm still good. He's bad. Don't go over there. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Do you
Hmm.
think that's kind of how she presented it too? Um, in that way, it's like, you guys can't leave me. Please don't leave me, and like make you feel bad for wanting
Yeah.
to leave at all.
All of that. Yes. 100%. It was that victim
Yeah.
type of, if you guys ever leave, I'll be heartbroken and you can't have a good relationship with both your mom and your dad, and it made us feel bad for going to my dad's house on the,
Hmm.
every other weekend. We had that normal every other weekend relationship and or custody, whatever thing you want to call it,
Yeah.
where we would go with my dad, and if we had a good time, I felt bad about it. And so my sister and I would come home from my dad's house and we'd see my oldest brother and everything. And my youngest brother was living with my dad. He was remarried to his second wife, and they had a kid. So I would see both of my brothers, and I would have a good time. We'd, play sports and hang out, whatever. And when we would get picked up by my mother, she would ask how it was, and my sister and I would both lie and say that it was not fun. It
Hmm.
was made to for us to almost feel guilty for having fun without her.
Well, and if
And
you said, "Oh, yeah, it was a great time. I had so much fun," you mean, were you scared that if you said that it was going to be backlash?
yeah, I did. Um, probably probably more times than not, we would say that, we didn't have a good time. And so the final straw was when I was in eighth grade. I had gotten kicked out of school. Um, we had went over to this probation officer's office downtown Las Vegas, and it was like a 30-40 minute drive to the to this guy's office. And the whole way, she was telling me how much of a terrible person I am, how bad of a human I was. I'm
In more colorful words.
a lot. Yeah. So, I mean, she called me every name in the book. And so we met with the probation officer, um, and came back from that meeting. And the whole way home, she pretty much picked up where she left off and talked about, how terrible I am and I'm gonna be in jail and all of this stuff. And so when we got home, I started packing a bag, and I remember her walking in my room and she like slams my door open. And she sees me packing my bag and she asks me where I'm going. And I said, I'm leaving. I can't stay here anymore. You don't like me. I don't like you. I just can't be in this type of home anymore. I said, I need to go live with my dad. And she walked around my bed, and I'm 14 at the time. She walked around my bed and punched me with a closed fist, probably as hard as she could, right in the face, and punched me like I was a grown man that was, trying to steal her purse or something. So she punches me, I fall back onto my bed, and she gets on top of me and puts her knees on my chest and is punching me in the face repeatedly. And I break free from her. I push her off of me, and my sister comes into the room and yells and screams and calls the cops, calls my dad. I think my dad called the cops. I think my sister called my dad, and my dad called the cops. Cops show up, and I've got marks on my neck from where she had tried to choke me with both of her hands. So I had paw prints basically on both sides of my neck. I had a black eye. I think I was bleeding from either my mouth or my nose. And she ends up getting arrested. She went to jail. Uh, the justice system failed me. She went to jail overnight, ended up pleading out and or bonding out, and then pled the case down to some very misdemeanor.
I can't believe that they let Jenna live there after that. Like that they didn't like CPS wasn't involved and didn't take your sister out of the household. Clearly you were going to be out of the household. Justin was already gone, but
Yeah, yeah. I don't have any idea what in the world the justice system was doing, but there was a clear cut, history of abuse. When they interviewed me, they asked about it. I told them it had been going on since I was like 4 or 5 that I could remember. And, of course, I was 14 at the time. So 9 years of abuse. My sister said the same thing. She backed my story and had her own. And uh, so when she got arrested, I moved with my dad. And this is where that trauma bond comes
well, it was
back.
already there, but
Yeah. Yeah, this is where it really kind of, as an adult, learning about this and researching it more, is I felt guilty because my mother went to jail for abusing me. And I came back to my mother's house maybe 6 months later or something like that to go see my sister and hang out with her. And my mother was in the house, and she told me that I needed to apologize to her for getting her locked up. And
I I hope you did not apologize to her. I mean, I can see how kids would probably just be like, okay.
yeah, oh, I
But in
did.
my mind, I'm like, God,
Right. Yeah, 100%. The only way that I could hang out with my sister is if I apologized. So I apologized so I could hang out with my sister. Did I mean it? Not even a little bit. But
and you guys really didn't. I mean, you moved in with your dad, and your relationship after that was pretty much non-existent, right? I mean, you would hang out with your sister, but you would try to hang out with her when she wasn't at home, when your
yeah,
father
no,
in
I
law wasn't at
no,
home.
I never saw her again. I didn't have any type of want to hang out with her or see her really. And for a long period of time, I felt responsible. I felt bad and felt guilty for it. And that's where that trauma,
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely
yeah,
trauma bond for
yep.
sure. And I mean, we'll talk about like different steps you can take. I mean, there's two that the best way is just cold turkey, no contact.
Hmm.
I know it's a lot easier said than done, and you did that. I mean, you did no contact, but or maybe
Yeah.
Not
So,
necessarily the gray rock method that we'll talk about, but
yeah.
as no contact as possible. Was it difficult for you to just completely stop, like after that moment when you kind of everything happened, came to a head, and you moved with your dad and realized it was like,
Yes. Yeah, that I completely cut ties and cut contact. And that was the best way for me to move forward and not forget, but move past that part of my life and move forward with my life. And completely cutting her out of my life and again choosing happiness is the way that I decided was best for me.
well, happiness and just, I mean, at some point, I'm sure you realize like this is not normal. Like this is not normal behavior. Mothers, parents are not supposed to
Yeah,
act
but I
this
didn't
way.
know that. I didn't know that because when I went back to when I moved in with my dad, his second wife, uh, she came after me one time too. I had gotten into a fight at school and I was telling her about the fight and I mean, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I had beat this kid up pretty good.
You were tooting your horn then at the
I
time.
was maybe a little bit. And
I mean, you were a kid, but
yeah, so I'd gotten into another fight at school. This kid was mad that I took his girlfriend. And so I was telling my dad's second wife about it. And she told me that I was terrible and I was lower than a piss ant and all of this stuff. And then punched me in the face. And it was like a trigger and a memory of,
yeah.
a continuation of that female abuse from a mother standpoint. And it all just came right back. And I remember feeling that same way all over again. And it was really difficult for me because, you know, these are two women in the mother role that didn't show me unconditional love, just lashed out and would beat me up and whatever. And because I was always told, this is another part of it, is I was always told, not to hit a woman and all of this. But meanwhile, these women are punching me like I'm a grown man. And so I didn't know that it wasn't normal in in the time. I mean, since then, I know now, and my dad's wife now, my mom is who I call my mom. She has showed me that unconditional love and what a mother should be, and been able to almost fix that.
Well, just show you what nurturing, compassionate
Yeah,
mother should
should be
should be and should have been for you.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. And
And it's, I mean, really difficult to talk about. I mean, my ears are on fire right now. Like, I mean, it
well,
is,
we,
it's,
we don't have to continue talking about it
yeah.
too much more, but we can get into the steps to emotionally, detach, and
Okay.
basically how to get out of that trauma bond. And obviously, the best way is no contact, just
Yeah.
completely no contact, don't communicate. But if for some reason, like in your instance too, if you have to keep contact for whatever reason, or something we were talking about earlier, with social media, you block and everything, you block them on your phone, and then all of a sudden they create new pages or new, phone numbers
Hmm.
and contact you. But whatever the situation, if you can't, there's something that we found that was called the gray rock method. And I had not heard of that. it was pretty interesting. I'll again read from Google the actual
The definition.
strategy. Yeah.
Okay.
So the gray rock method, it's a strategy used to deal with manipulative or abusive individuals by deliberately acting uninterested, bland, and disengaged,
Hmm.
and essentially making yourself as boring and unreactive as possible to discourage further interaction and emotional engagement from the other person.
Right.
It involves using minimal emotional responses, short answers, and avoiding personal details to appear uninteresting. And we also had like looked up where did this the name come from? Like
The
how
gray
did you
rock
get
method.
gray
Yeah.
rock method or the name for it? And I don't have it here, but it was some
It,
love fraud. Was it
yeah, it
love
was
fraud?
love fraud in 2012.
someone
A lady
was it a
wrote.
lady or a guy?
No, it was a lady. She had wrote about it or written about it on Love Fraud in 2012. And when you go and you're looking for pretty rocks and,
Most
colorful
boring,
rocks, the gray rock is the most boring.
boring,
It's the
bland.
one that nobody wants to touch, nobody wants to bring
Mhm.
home, and
Where the
wh-
name came from.
that's where the name came from, and that's where you really want to put yourself if you have to have contact with this person is you want to be very short. You want to be uninteresting
Hmm.
and not show any type of emotion in your responses and basically become uninterested in talking to this person so they eventually just
Give up, pretty
give up
much. Yeah.
and leave you alone.
It says the goal is to deter manipulative behavior by appearing completely unfazed and uninteresting to the other person.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you said, giving minimal responses, avoiding eye contact, keeping conversations short and superficial.
Yes,
The individual tries to take away the abuser's power to elicit strong emotional reactions. There's actually, yeah, I think this was what we looked at before. The, be brief when you answer any questions.
yeah,
Don't feed into their drama.
that's a big one. Don't feed into. They're gonna try to manipulate the conversation to where it hits your emotions, and you have to not feed into that. You have to stay
Hmm.
stone faced. I mean, and just be very short and not give them that satisfaction of, oh my God, really? No.
Yeah, I feel like I used to do this method, but in a totally unrelated, not in a trauma bond situation, but when I would argue with my ex, sometimes he would want to like I could feel that he was wanting to get into this huge big argument or
Mm,
have, you know, he just wanted that back and forth, and
yeah.
I would find myself just yeah, sure, okay, whatever you say, yeah, like shrugging, nodding, like just
Right.
trying to be like, I'm not giving in. I'm not being a part of this bullshit. I'm not playing
Yeah.
this game.
Just
No.
in your text response, K.
No, it was always like
Okay.
in person, but yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the gray rock method, and if you have to be
If you
a
can't, yeah,
yeah,
just
if you can't go no contact and completely shut the person off, then this is a way to disengage and get them to leave you alone.
yeah. Oh, I mean, I guess it does tie into what we were talking about the last two episodes when it comes to narcissism. It says this method is often employed when dealing with narcissistic or
Hmm.
people exhibiting abusive behavior in relationships. So, was
100%
doing something I didn't even know was a
was a
proven
method.
method. And I
Yeah.
mean, I, I, I don't know if you knew that you were doing those things, but you didn't engage with her at all until your daughter was born.
Right. Yeah, with my mother. So this was prior to 2012. I mean, this was
You're right. This wasn't even a thing. But someone just, I
no,
mean,
this was
someone else was doing this. They just named it, they gave it a name,
right.
It was a
Yeah.
strategy that I'm sure people
Yeah.
were unknowingly doing and someone put a name to it.
Yeah, and my situation happened in the 1990s because
Don't tell them how old we are.
prior to Y2K, you know. So when I was going through it, I quit talking to her and I went no contact. And if I did have to have any sort of interaction, it was just that. It was very short, very uninteresting. And when my daughter was born, I gave her a second chance. I gave her a second chance to be a grandma. I didn't need a mom. I had a new mom that I love very much. And when I gave her that opportunity, she within 2 or 3 months was back at it. The drama, the
She
the
wasn't physically abusing you, but she was being verbally and mentally abusive. And
yeah,
then you
yeah,
saw the potential for with Tay or um, right.
yeah, I did. So when um my daughter was less than a year old, we had went out and had Thanksgiving out in Vegas. We had moved away, um, and we had went out to Vegas for Thanksgiving. And when we went and visited her, it was her first time meeting my daughter face to face, and we were getting ready to go out or something, and my ex-wife, my wife at the time, had done my daughter's hair, and my biological mother told me that her hair was ugly, and so she went and redid it. She went and redid her hair. And when I tell you I lost it, I lost it. I'm like, that's unacceptable. You have no business doing that because, my wife at the time is her mom. That's not your kid, that's mine. And my oldest brother was there and he had to step in between us because I feel like I would have went on a rage. I would have went and
Something bad could happen.
something
And
bad not could have would have happened for sure because I was just at that
mhm. Well,
level.
and there's probably other people out there who have said, oh, I redid my grandchild's hair, or, you know, but I think it was more of how she went about it
Yes,
and what she said and how and just those feelings that kind of come back and
it all came back. So after I gave her that opportunity again and she messed it up, I went back to the no contact. I didn't even use the gray rock method at all. I went full no contact. I said, "You blew it. That was your one shot." And from that day on, I told myself that I would never allow my daughter to be around her and never feel the way that I felt growing up, and that I would break that chain and I would stop the abuse and I would positively reaffirm to her that she's worth it, that she's loved unconditionally, and that she will always have a better childhood than I had.
I think you did a great job. I think you're a great dad.
Thanks, babe.
Talked about the trauma bond and what a trauma bond is, and steps to break it. So
Hmm.
now we'll go into how to take, your power back and how to feel self-empowered, and emotionally detach from that bond.
Okay.
Recommendations are always affirmations and a positive mindset. And that's sometimes a lot easier. I mean, everybody can throw those words around. Yeah, just have a positive mindset and say affirmations. And affirmations are positive things you say to yourself to make you feel better about yourself and in your life. So, I mean, you can Google, look them up. They've made hundreds of books on positive affirmations. There's apps out that you can download,
Yeah.
and saying things to yourself like, "I am enough. I deserve love that doesn't hurt."
Mm, that's a big one. That was a couple that I used to heal myself is I told myself that I was enough and that one day I was going to get better and heal and that I would be able to step out of
Hmm.
that victim mindset and start fresh. And I was able to do that with my daughter. And the positive affirmations are big. It's a really big mindset shift to feed yourself and almost change your
Hmm.
your
Yes.
thinking because everything your mouth says, your brain believes. And that's huge when it comes to talking bad about yourself. When you are talking about yourself, your brain believes it. So you want to positively talk about yourself. You know, we you and I catch each other and
I knew you were
you'll
gonna say that. I was
yeah,
waiting for you to
yeah. And
you'll tell me I don't like that. You said that about yourself. You better stop it.
yeah,
I'm
I don't
like,
like the way
okay.
you're talking
I
to
don't
my
like, yeah,
girlfriend.
I don't like how you're talking to my girlfriend right now. I'm like, I am your girlfriend. You're like, yeah, and I don't like what you're saying.
Right. So,
Um, and it does, even if you don't say it out loud, I think it's best to, but if it's weird at first, still saying it in your mind, things that, um, we just mentioned too, but I mean, you can
hundreds,
say,
there's yeah, there's
you
hundreds.
hundreds, but if depending on what you're dealing with, my body is beautiful. I accept myself for who I am. I am proud of myself. I feel more grateful each day. I'm
That's
getting healthier every day. Things like that. And saying that I personally like to, that's how I like to start my day. Say positive things to yourself.
mm,
Um,
saying that you're proud of yourself, no matter where in life you are, is a big one.
mhm.
Because if you were to write down all of the things on a list, and I heard this in another podcast. It was Theo Vaughn, and he was talking to Cat Williams, and Cat Williams said, if you write down on a list, on a piece of paper, write a list of everything you've overcome, and you're able to wake up today and make a change, make improvements, and go on about your life, you are the same as every hero in every movie and
Mhm.
every book. So it's huge.
It's probably good.
It's really good, and it was
Mhm.
it caught me by surprise just because with my childhood and things I've had to overcome, it's true. And everybody can say that. Nobody's had a perfect life. Nobody's had this rainbows and
Yeah.
butterflies and unicorn poop, it's everybody's had
Do
to over
unicorns poop?
yeah,
Do they?
do they? Yeah.
No, it's sprinkles. That's what
Ah.
it is. Um, yeah, I mean, affirmations are, I think, very important. It helps shift your
Hmm.
mindset. You speak positivity verbally or, in your
Yep.
head to yourself. Speak life to yourself.
And
Something we heard.
manifest your own
Yes.
positivity, your
Yes.
own positive world.
And be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to be consistent with anything in life that you want to accomplish. You have to be consistent.
Yes.
Do it in the morning, do it in the evening, twice a day. make set aside time, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be 3 to 5 minutes a day where you speak those things to yourself and do positive affirmations. Try doing it in front of a mirror and actually looking at
Oh,
yourself and saying it in your head and then start saying it out loud.
I've never
And
done that one. I've never said it anything in a mirror before.
it's um I think it's tough. Uh
Yeah.
it's I can't remember where I heard it from first, but they said, and it might have been actually, and it might have been in a movie, so I don't know how
Oh,
legitimate
okay.
it was, but they said, look at yourself, stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and count back from 10
Okay.
and see if you can make it to zero. And if you can make it to zero without some negative thought coming to your head about what you're looking at, regarding yourself, what you're staring at in the mirror,
Yeah.
then you're better off than you think. But if you can't even make it to zero without a negative, you start picking at yourself or a negative thought start popping up or something, just you're talking bad to yourself, you need to start working on those positive affirmations and the
Right.
positive mindset because you're setting yourself up for just to not heal. You're not letting yourself heal. You're just going to stay stuck in a mentality,
Yep.
and that's
Okay.
that's not going to be healthy for you.
So what was the second one? There was positive affirmations, and what was the other one?
Just your mindset, making your mindset shift to something that's positive
Yep.
and um, re- I have this word and it's stuck in my head. Positive and reinforces.
Ah,
Sorry, reinforces. I was like reinforces that you are enough. You deserve love that doesn't hurt, and that whatever challenge or obstacle or trauma bond that you broke from, it don't let it, don't live in that negative space. Don't live in that space of self-doubt and guilt and shame and all the emotions that can come from it.
yeah,
This
you
is how
you
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 break out of
can
that.
you can live as the victim as long as you allow yourself. And
Yeah, victim mentality is a tough one.
as soon as you can shift your mindset to changing from the victim, it can either be the reason why or it can be the because. And when you shift to the reason why, this is the reason why I'm a better person, you're going to be so much better off. And I am better off because I chose to say, I'm going to be a better person because of my childhood abuse. I'm going to be a better father because of my childhood abuse. And that was my why, is I wanted my child to have a better life than I had and a better childhood than I had. And shifting that
Mhm.
mindset and where I no longer feel as a victim, it changed my perception of myself. And I mean, I'm typically a pretty positive person.
I think you're a very positive person.
I always try to find the
Yeah.
positive in a lot of situations. And that's another part of your mindset is not dwelling on, oh, I failed at this thing. It's like, okay, I failed, but at least I did something right. What did I do right? And focus on that. Take it as a learning, and build on that.
Well, not everything is, oh, I failed. It's, uh, it just this didn't work out. This wasn't what was meant for me. This wasn't in my path.
Yeah.
Um, and that's okay.
Yep. It is
Yeah.
accepting it.
But victim mentality is that's a whole nother episode. We'll have to get into it a different time.
Definitely.
Um, that was that's a good one. I hate hearing those things about you. It makes me sad. But
Well, that's
it's a well, not a learning experience, I'm sorry. It's something that we hope someone else can learn from. It's not common to hear men talk about it either, I feel like. They are quieter, so it
I've been
can be
quiet
a
for
better, yeah, voice for somebody else.
Yep, I've been quiet for 25 years and it's my time to talk about it. And if you are struggling with childhood abuse, if you have went through childhood abuse, please reach out to me. Put it in the comments on YouTube. I'll read it. We can have a conversation. We can talk about it. I am more than happy to help where I can because it was such a big part of my world growing up and it has been such a big part of my growth into
Hmm.
adulthood.
And we would always recommend to, um, professional. I feel like you should always get professional counseling and therapy too.
Yes,
But yeah, absolutely, you're a good person to talk to about that.
certainly. But
Well,
I appreciate you guys listening to my
yeah,
story. Thank
I know
you.
it's always hard to hear it, even though I've heard it before.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like I said, it's tough to talk about, but it is certainly something to learn from and something to go through. And they say you grow through what you go through. So I
and if you can
really,
help someone, that's even better.
yep, I really think that people can be better when they can talk about it. And that's
Hmm.
my main focus. So
Well,
it's all for us
until
today.
the next time, folks.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you learned something and our stories resonate with you, subscribe to our podcast. That's a zero cost way to support our channel. You can also follow us on Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. They're linked in the description of the episode. We'd love for you to put any questions, comments, or suggestions for future episodes in the comment section on YouTube. We'll read them all. Again, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your interest. And as always, we remind you to be the best version of yourself. See you next time on the Touch My Health podcast.